Hello and welcome back to the 2018 Sundance Film Festival. We are here today with Emily Ann Hoffman, who is a Sundance Ignite alumni, and she also has a film, OK Call Me Back, in Slamdance this year, as well as Nevada, which is in the Shorts program here at the Sundance Film Festival. So welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for being here.
So let's start. Oh, and I want to remind everyone watching on the live stream that we will be taking questions from the live stream. So go ahead and put things in the comments if you have any questions for Emily. So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
You're an artist, you're an animator, you're a filmmaker. How did you get your creative beginnings?
I guess I started, oh, sorry, my phone is ringing. That's inappropriate. I've always loved art for as long as I can remember. My parents are very creative, and so they'd always paint with us and do crafts with us, and so I was always painting and drawing for as long as I can remember, and I knew I wanted to be an artist. And so then my parents were super supportive, which was wonderful, and they encouraged me to pursue that, and I went to art school. I went to Rhode Island School of Design for undergrad. And there I studied illustration, and I thought I wanted to be a painter. But I always loved storytelling. I always liked writing, but I didn't think of myself as a writer. And then my junior year of college, I took an animation class, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do, because I realized that through a time-based medium, I could tell a story better, and I could use comedy, and I could use timing and all that jazz. So that's how I got into animation and made an animated film in college, and was able to take that on a small film festival circuit. And after doing that, I saw more and more independent film, was exposed to a lot of that, and realized that that's kind of the world that I wanted to be in. And that's where I've planted my roots since. Yeah.
And are you still painting at all?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I mean, I mainly do stop motion animation, and the great thing about stop motion is that you have to make everything yourself, and so it's a great excuse for me to paint and draw and sculpt and everything like that, and I just paint as a hobby sometimes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you were a 2017 Sundance Ignite Fellow. For those at home that don't know what Sundance Ignite is, can you tell us a little bit about the program?
Yeah, so it's a fellowship for young filmmakers with the Sundance Institute and Adobe Project 1324, and it's for filmmakers 18 to 24. It might be 25 now, but it's a really wonderful opportunity to kind of just be welcomed into this industry and this institute that from afar and for a young filmmaker may seem really closed off and really difficult to get connected to. So I was paired with 14 other fellows who are all very talented and all made very diverse work, and we formed a really strong bond over the past year. We got to go to Sundance last year, we got to go to Next Fest in LA, and then Adobe brought us out to the Adobe Max, yeah, in Las Vegas. And so obviously had some incredible trips. I'd never been to Vegas before, and met some really wonderful people, and it's been a life-changing year.
And then between the events that you were at, there was a mentorship component of it?
Yeah, so the main thing that Sundance does for you is they give you a mentor. So my mentor was Shira Rockowitz, who works with the Sundance Institute's Feature Film Program. And so we'd have monthly check-ins, we'd talk about projects I was working on, I could ask her questions, and all the other mentors were available for us to talk to as well. So it was really cool to form bonds not only with filmmakers my age who are doing cool things, but also people who are on a level that we aspire to be at one day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I think we have a trailer that sort of explains a little bit more about the Ignite program that we'll go to now.
When I look at you, I see my cousin, I see my nephew, I see my sister, I see myself.
There's two things you can do. You either stay and fight or you flight. We stayed and fought.
Awesome. So tell us about the project that you did through the Ignite program.
Yeah, so what I submitted to the Ignite
Yeah,
program,
exactly.
that
Sorry.
one, no, it's okay. It's called Okay, Call Me Back, and that's the one that's at Sundance this year. And that I made with the Jacob Burns Film Center, which is a film center based out of Pleasantville, New York. And they have been supporting me and one of the other Ignite Fellows, Leah Gallant, for the past year or so. And I had applied to that fellowship with a treatment for Nevada, which is at Sundance this year. And as soon as they awarded me that fellowship, which was really exciting, Sean Weiner, who runs that program, was like, congratulations on this fellowship. There's another fellowship we really want you to apply to. You have 2 weeks, make a film.
Jeez.
And so me and Leah were very stressed out, and we made a film really quickly, but we had the support of this great institute. And so, yeah, Okay, Call Me Back is a pseudo-experimental narrative comedy about a woman leaving a voicemail late at night, and it's heavy on the innuendos and essentially about someone leaving a booty call, but also exploring female sexuality and the way that it has been expressed in the past and the present. And it was a really fun project because it was my first live action film that I shot, and the first time working with a cinematographer, Russell Pabord, who was really amazing. And it was really fun because I feel like I shot it as if it was an animation. There's a lot of, all the shots are still and just some mild movement, and there is actually some stop motion within it, and I was able to make these giant paintings as backdrops and kind of really heavily production design the whole thing. So yeah, it was a really fun experiment, and then obviously amazing to have it recognized by Sundance.
Yeah, so why was that an important story for you to tell?
Well, I think I'm always interested in female stories, and I think that what often informs feminine identity is our bodies, and our bodies have been sexualized and objectified for a really long time. And so I'm always interested in how those experiences inform our own sense of identity and our own relationship to our body. Speaking of body, I'm losing my voice, excuse me.
No worries.
But yeah, so this was kind of exploring, you know, as a young feminist, you're growing up in this world, and it's like you want to be independent and you want to be on your own and strong and feel like you can do things on your own. But also part of being a human is craving companionship and wanting and desiring people. And so this was just kind of exploring those funny and awkward and sad moments when you wish you had someone and you don't necessarily know how to go about asking for company or companionship, and exploring loneliness and desire.
And when in making a project that is sort of such an important topic, and obviously an important topic to you, how validating did it feel that was the project that then got you into the Ignite Fellowship?
Oh, it was so validating. It was great because I think I can usually tell, I think most artists can tell when they're on the right track, or for themselves or for other people, it doesn't matter, but you usually feel this like, oh, I'm doing it. I think I got it. And so I was really excited about this film. It was something new for me, and I thought it was going well. And so then it was really, really rewarding to be rewarded and be recognized for it and have people react so strongly to it. It's been awesome.
And so then your newest film, Nevada, tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so that one is a stop-motion animated comedy about a young couple who has a birth control mishap. And so they are on a romantic weekend getaway, and they have to talk about taking Plan B, not taking Plan B, pregnancy, all the things that could happen. And that one explores, just, it's not about whether having a baby or not having a baby is the right answer for them. It's more about the little moments in between those decisions and the weight of those decisions, which can sometimes feel really light, or sometimes, you have to talk through it, and it's exploring it from the female character's perspective, and this male partner who is trying to do the right thing, but, kind of sticks his foot in his mouth a lot, or is not always the most sensitive to things, or doesn't necessarily know how to help, or doesn't necessarily understand the weight of the situation. And yeah, so it's a back and forth.
And so we actually have a question from the live stream. Ali Khan asks, what inspires you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think aesthetically, visually, I look a lot at female photographers and illustrators, artists, painters. I really like very textural, very visceral work because, like I said, I like to explore themes of body, and I think work that explores those textures and kind of like the grossness of bodies sometimes is really interesting to me. So you should check out Maisie Cousins and Honey Long and Prue Stent. Honey Long and Prue Stent are a photography team, and Maisie Cousins is a photographer as well, and they're all incredible female photographers, and they explore the female body through the female gaze. So aesthetically, that's what inspires me. In terms of story, I think it's all just, things that I've experienced or things that I've gone through with my friends, and I try to keep a journal, and I try to write down things that I think are funny or poetic, or I find that when an experience sticks with me, I realize it's something that I should explore further. So sometimes I'll just flip through my journal and see a repeating pattern of ideas or jokes that I think maybe only I think are funny, and then I kind of expand them and develop it into a story.
So talk us through the process of creating Nevada.
Sure. So that started obviously with inspiration from personal and shared experiences, and just hearing these kind of same stories over and over again, but then realizing that no one was talking about it outside of closed doors and kind of like gossiping among girlfriends. So I wanted to write something that explored that theme, and so I wrote a short story first, and then I adapted it into a script because I wanted to teach myself screenwriting. And so this is the first script that I wrote. And then...
So Okay Call Me Back didn't have a script?
No, I performed it, so it was pseudo-improvised, pseudo-written. I knew the beats that I wanted to hit, and then I just like rolled a bunch of takes. And I storyboarded, so I wrote it in a way, but it wasn't a
more of an outline
script.
than a script. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Nevada was the first script that I wrote, and then after that, just started thinking about how I was going to make it. So lots of sketches, lots of mood boards. I was on Pinterest a lot. And then when it came time to make the film, I started with the storyboards and with recording my voice actors, because with animation you need the dialogue first, that you know the timing. So recorded my voice actors. After that, I made an animatic, which is basically when you edit you have an audio edit and you figure out what visuals and motions are going to go with that. So that I all did in Premiere. I take the audio, and then I take my storyboard and match it up with the audio, and from there I do the actual animation, which is I hand make all of my sets, all of my puppets, and that's probably my favorite part of the process is the fabrication, because it's just arts and crafts. Yeah. So I make dolls basically, and then I play with them. So I set them up in a studio in a set, and I move them frame by frame. Animation is 12 frames per second, so take 12 pictures to make a second, and that's using a program called Dragon Frame, which is the stop motion program most animators use. Export that, bring that into Premiere, and I edit that up with the audio, line that up.
So you sort of replace the storyboard elements.
Exactly. So I just replace the loose sketches I had made with the actual animation. And then for this film, the characters' faces were rotoscope animation, which is when you take a video and you trace it frame by frame to animate it. So I took videos of my voice actors and then traced their mouths and their eyes to get their expressions. So that I animated in Photoshop. So I dragged in those videos, animated frame by frame in Photoshop, exported that on a transparency layer, put that into Premiere over the stop motion, and then the last step was to stop motion puppets. In order for them to stand, you have to screw their feet into a plank of wood, and so they kind of leave behind these feet holes that are not intentional. So in After Effects, I just clean that up a bit, and then put it back in Premiere, export all of it, and that's it.
So how did the decision get made? I mean, I know by trade you're an animator. how does the decision get made that OK Call Me Back was live action and Nevada was animated or stop motion?
Yeah. Well, OK Call Me Back, part of it was definitely the time limit. I had 2 weeks to make it, and so the thought of doing an animation in 2 weeks was like, no way. So, and I also knew that I was looking at a lot of these photographers for inspiration, and I was like, I wanted to try doing live action, and I wanted to try doing some more artistic cinematography in live action. So that was part of that decision. And then Nevada, A, I'm an animator, so that's my background, and B, it's a story about sex, but it's not necessarily a sexy story, and I think that it's very different for audiences to watch real human bodies that are naked and lying around and talking versus naked puppets. And it's, as a comedy, I wanted people to be focusing on the emotions of the story rather than like, oh, that actress is doing a nude scene, you know?
Right.
So I think it's great because as soon as, you know, the film opens up with some B-roll of the set and you can't really tell at first that it's stop motion, and then as soon as you get to the puppets, that's usually an instant laugh for audiences because, you know, you hear like moaning and kissing and they're like, oh, puppets are kissing. And it's goofy, and I think it helps disarm audiences and really just like dive into this couple's story rather than focusing on other elements. Mm-hmm. And it's also, there's a bit of magical realism in it. There's kind of these abstract spaces that they go into at some point, and when they're talking about a baby, imagining a baby, it kind of pops in and out.
Oh, right.
So all of those magical realism elements are so naturally built into stop motion that it feels way more natural than if I did a live action and then those were visual effects. Yeah, that would be so weird. People wouldn't like it.
So why do you make the choice to use Adobe tools?
It's what I know. I think I like the workflow because I use 3 different programs usually. I always use Photoshop and Premiere, and then After Effects I often use minimally at the end. It makes the workflow so much easier to just go from one to the other. And, you know, all the functions are fairly similar within the program. So
you use a lot of like the integration between the programs?
Yeah, or at least I am more familiar with how the tools work and just even the layout of the programs. It's just ease, and they're fairly easy to use. I feel like once you know one, you can know them all. And I'm probably most comfortable in Photoshop and Premiere too at this point. So it's nice because I'm not as comfortable with After Effects, but whenever I have to do it, I don't feel completely intimidated. I know that I have some foundation of knowledge going into that.
Yeah, so speaking of knowledge, how did you learn Photoshop, Premiere, After Effects?
That was all at school. So okay. Rhode Island School of Design. They're great. In my junior year, I took a photo, I think it was digital illustration class, and so that's where I learned Photoshop. And as soon as I got the basics down, I was like, oh my God, this makes my life so much easier. So yeah, I learned Photoshop first, and then I think I learned Premiere in like one of the animation classes I took. And yeah, so Photoshop was first, and I used Illustrator for a little while, but I use it less now because I'm not illustrating as much.
And then was After Effects in school as well, or have you sort of taught yourself knowing
it's a
the
bit of
UI
both.
of Photoshop and Premiere?
Yeah, I did a bit of a digital animation class in school, and I honestly didn't like it as much as traditional animation. But I did learn some of the basics of After Effects, and then now when I use it, I rely super heavily on YouTube tutorials.
Yeah. Because
it's usually something very specific that I have to do, and so I can usually just Google, you know, make flames appear in After Effects, and it shows me how to do that. Yeah.
Any, outside of making flames, any features that are like go-to for you for any of those programs?
Let's see. I think in Photoshop, this is like, I really like drop shadows. When I'm doing graphic design or any of my illustrations, I like that effect.
Yeah, well, it gives depth to something.
Yeah, it's nice, especially because I always start with hand-drawn, or I always start with a physical art thing. And so it's nice to bring it into Photoshop, and I feel like the drop shadows are a fun, like, pseudo-digital, but mixes the very real feeling of the art in with it.
Anything in Premiere?
Premiere, I mean, the cut tool, 'cause I'm just editing all the time. Yeah, and then I keyframe a lot, just because I'll do, right now, the new film I'm working on is live action within animation, and so I'm going to have a compositor do the actual compositing for me. But for now, as I'm editing it, it's helpful to, there's a TV show playing in the background, so we recorded some footage for that TV show that I'm later going to animate. So for now, to help with the edit, to see all the visuals come together, I kind of I keyframed, pretty crappily, but keyframed the footage to the TV so that it moves around.
So you have a mask within, and then you keyframe it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned that you did your voiceover, and so do you use many of the audio tools? Are you doing much audio work in Premiere?
I personally am not much of an audio person.
Okay.
I think it's great when it's right, and that's why I trust it to other people, because that's not my skill set. So you just work with a sound recorder and a sound mixer, and I put all the audio in Premiere, and I do some minor volume things, but I always have someone else mix it for me, because it would be much better in my version.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Anna from the live stream asks, now that you've been an Ignite Fellow for a year, do you have any advice for filmmakers who are just starting out?
Yeah, definitely. I think make friends and lean on your friends. I feel like people always say networking, and it's true, but I think there's this idea of networking when you're still in school, or you're starting out in a business where you're like, okay, I gotta be super professional and this networking robot, and I've realized that's the opposite of what works. It's just, as in a creative field, it's about finding connections with other creative people, and it is about networking up to a degree to find people who you admire or you'd like to work for at some point. But at the same time, when you're working on your own projects, it's really great to network laterally, which is something I think I read that Issa Rae said about networking laterally, because you all have different skill sets, and then there's no power dynamics when you're all at the same level. So you can all bring something to the table, but not feel intimidated or not feel like anyone's better than anyone else. And so that's what my last set, it was my first really big live action shoot, and I was nervous I wouldn't be able to find people to work for me or how to work on the set, and it made me so happy to work on that set, because it was a lot of friends, a lot of new acquaintances, and everyone had some experience doing what they were doing and really passionate about it, but we were all also a little green, and it was just such a nice environment. So definitely work with people. And
what a great outcome from the Ignite Fellowship, because now you have contacts all over the world.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I have a friend, Kevin Rios, who was a fellow the year before me. He worked on a new film that he wanted a stop motion element in it, and I did that for him, and it was so fun to be part of his vision. And Tyler Rabinowitz, who he kind of joined the Jacob Burns Center crew with us, and so it's great. We're forming a little network of filmmakers. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And sort of a family. It sounds like it's not just your year of fellows, but there's a connection to the
great.
years.
I'm super excited to get to know everyone, and I think I know some of them already, which is great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that with Nevada, it's your first sort of trying your hand at screenwriting, and now you are a Sundance Screenwriting Fellow, yes?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that's a wonderful fellowship that was started to try to diversify the industry, and it's supporting any diverse filmmaker, which it's almost a little sad that I qualify for that as a woman, but also great to broaden the industry. So I'm working with Elise McKimmey. She is my mentor, and she works for the Feature Film Program, so she does the more advanced screenwriting labs and directing labs, and she's advising me on a new feature script that I'm writing,
wow,
which is so incredible, because I always liked writing. I always wanted to pursue writing, but I never had any formal training. So writing a first feature is very daunting, and it's great to feel like I'm not doing that alone. So the short film that I just shot, which is called Bug Bite, is a proof of concept for this feature film. So I wrote that script too, and that's kind of exploring the world, and now we're moving towards embellishing this feature.
And it's an animated feature?
It's a combo, so it's live action and animated. It's about a young woman who befriends a bed bug, and they have to take down the patriarchy together.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's a dark comedy. And so the woman is live action, and most of her world is live action, and then the bug and other elements will be animated.
So you mentioned that the Screenwriting Fellowship is based on the idea of diversifying voices. Why is that important?
For so many reasons.
Sort of a softball question, but yeah.
So many reasons. Giving very deserving people opportunities. B is, if you keep hiring the same people, you're going to keep getting the same stories. And I think that's the most exciting part of diversifying, is when you give new people opportunities, they bring something new to the table. I think everyone has a different perspective, and if you've had an experience that's different than mainstream, you're going to bring something new to the table. And that's what we're finding. And I also think that people who have been given less opportunities are more likely to create a better environment in general, because they know what it's like to be at the bottom. And so I've found, as a female filmmaker, I've had so much support from women and from other communities, and even the straight white men in the industry who have been favored in the past. There are some really wonderful guys out there who are recognizing the need for change, and I've got so much support from those people as well, who are already in, and they're recognizing it's time to change, and they're trying to reach out to people, to women of color, people of color, and queer communities, all that. And I think it's a really exciting time to be an artist.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point in terms of the Screenwriting Fellowship, that while it's great to see more female, more queer, more people of color directing or editing, but taking into consideration that the stories, the screenwriters, are just as important a part of that, because perhaps those people don't want to be directing, or but the stories are still getting told.
Totally. And I feel like that's a part of advice that I would give to other filmmakers, is recognize what you're good at and also what you're not good at. Like, I know I'm not good at sound, so if I try to do it, it's going to be bad. So that's an opportunity to bring on someone who is maybe from a different community than you, and look to fill that position with someone who could diversify your set, your story, your crew. Yeah.
And so why is it important for organizations like Sundance, like Adobe, to support programs like Ignite, like Project 1324, like these screenwriting fellowships and things?
Because we are the future. Excuse me. Yeah, I think of young artists are eager artists, and we really want to make a mark. We really want to claim our space in this industry, and obviously it's a very interesting time we're living in right now. There's a lot of turmoil, there's a lot of butting heads, and there's a lot of conflict and resistance, and art is a wonderful way to express that openly, so that we're not shutting people out, but we're broadening perspectives. And I think the younger generation is one that's resisting really hard right now, and we're fighting for our voice, we're fighting for opportunities. And so when we are supported, I think it's a great opportunity for us to prove ourselves. And I think when you're green, you try really hard, and the result is often really wonderful and different.
And probably a certain level of validation to what you're trying to do.
Oh, yeah, totally. Because the year after I graduated 2015, and before I got the fellowship with Jacob Burns, and then very soon after Ignite, I was pretty bummed for a while, because I was looking for jobs in animation, and I was getting some freelance work here and there, but it wasn't coming very steadily, and I was just like, how do I support myself? And was kind of starting to have a bit of an existential crisis, like, what am I doing? And I took that opportunity. I was living at home with my parents for a little while, and I was like, you know what, while I'm here, while my parents aren't kicking me out, and I have some free time, I'm gonna write my story. I'm gonna write what I want the world to hear. And I did, and then when Sundance Ignite, when Jacob Burns came along, I was ready with something to show them, and I think that was extraordinarily validating to realize that this thing that I had churning inside me was worth sharing. And then a year later, to be here with both of them again with an even broader audience, I've been very emotional this week. I've definitely cried multiple times.
Oh, yeah?
But from happiness, you know, because it's A, living a dream, and then B, hearing different people react to the films, and to my face, they're saying they like it. So that's good.
I bet they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
So talk us through that moment when you, so actually, to
Yeah.
take a step back, with Nevada, when you were creating it, was the intent always to submit to Sundance?
I think so. I feel like the first intent was just to make a good film. And I had done the festival run, a small festival run with a previous short film that I had worked on. So I definitely intended to submit it to festivals. And yeah, as soon as I got into Ignite, it was kind of like, oh, this world isn't closed off to me, you know. So I definitely intended to submit it to Sundance, but I think it wasn't until after I kind of finished making the movie that I was like, you know what, I'm proud of this, and I actually do think I have a shot, which was exciting to find validation within myself. So, yeah.
So tell us about when you found out that you had been accepted.
Oh my God. It was amazing. Well, all the Ignite Fellows, like you said, we're a family, so we all have like group chats going, and everyone knew that certain people had submitted, so there was like this rumor, it was like, okay, when you get into Sundance, you get a call right before Thanksgiving. And so it was the week before Thanksgiving, and I was trying to relax and get into family mode, and I was like, if I don't get a call this week, it's over. And it was Sunday night at 11 p.m., and I was thinking that the next day, you know, I was like, maybe during the week they'll give me a call. And so Sunday night at 11 p.m., I saw a Los Angeles number pop up on my phone, and I was like, oh my God. It took like a moment to breathe. I didn't want to be too eager and answered on the first ring, you know, play it cool. So I answered on like the second ring, and it was Lisa Ogden, who's one of the shorts programmers, and she was like, it's Ann Hoffman, we want to invite you. And I was like, you know, hyperventilating and trying to be cool about it. I was like, yeah, thank you so much. Very loud, and all my roommates were asleep, so I kind of just did like a happy dance by myself, and I called my producer, I called Leah, who had been, you know, part of both fellowships with me and super supportive, and called my boyfriend, and everyone was so excited. Leah had the best reaction probably. I called her, and she FaceTimed me, and she sprinted outside, and it was freezing cold out, and it was snowing, and she was like, you got it. So, yeah, it was a very silly and really amazing night.
It's funny, it hasn't struck me until just now, but I like never answer phone numbers that I don't know.
Yeah, it was only because I was on edge. It was because I knew, and I was looking for an LA number, because, you know, I don't often get a random LA number from New York, so... Yeah.
So what do you love about what you do? What keeps you going?
Ooh. A lot of things. I love the process. I think just because of how I grew up making art, making things with my hand, that's always my favorite part, is whether it's animation or whatever, fabrication or painting, drawing. I love that. It's really relaxing, and it just comes naturally to me. And then the broader part is just sharing stories that I feel like people can relate to. And the moments when I get to share it are amazing. So being here, being at other festivals, screening things online, and getting feedback is always awesome. And my favorite things that I've heard are, you know, I've been in that situation, or like, oh my gosh, yes. You know, because I not necessarily intentionally, but I do tend to tell stories that I don't think have been told before, and it's just because that's what's pushing me. And so, yeah, that's really great hearing people connect to it, especially when I tell a human story with puppets and people think the puppets are really funny, but they're still like, I know that guy, or like, I was that girl, or whatever, you know? And I think a really great part of making Nevada has been men reacting to me in a way and being like, I was that guy before, and damn it, you know, like I did say that thing. And it's hard for them too, because it's a situation where you both don't know what to do and you're both a little panicked if it's not what you wanted. And so that's been cool, hearing men reflecting on it in a way where it seems like they're taking it in and maybe thinking about how they would handle things in the future. And women reacting to it is amazing too, but it's often just like, yep. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
So between OK, Call Me Back in Nevada and this new project that you mentioned, how can people keep up with the different projects, with you?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, kind of. It's at Emily Animation, so it's animation with 2 N's. Okay. That's my social media handle, and my website is ehoffmanportfolio.com.
Okay. And we can put a link in the description.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
And thanks to the live stream audience for tuning in. Stay tuned for more from the 2018 Sundance Film Festival.